Horizon Prime hung like a crystalline jewel against the infinite blackness of space, a testament to interstellar diplomacy and technological marvel. The station's transparent corridors offered breathtaking views of surrounding space, its architecture a delicate blend of human engineering and alien aesthetic sensibilities. Constructed as a neutral ground for galactic negotiations, it represented the pinnacle of cooperative design, a symbol of potential peace among diverse civilizations. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the grand diplomatic chamber, her posture radiating a calm that belied the tension crackling through the air. She was not a typical diplomat. Her background was a carefully curated blend of linguistic expertise, strategic intelligence, and deep space exploration experience. Her dark eyes scanned the assembled representatives, a mosaic of alien physiologies that would have appeared bizarre to humans from just a century earlier. The Zentari delegation occupied the most prominent position, their crystalline exoskeletons reflecting the chamber's soft lighting. Ambassador Krulnax, the senior Zentari representative, towered over Rodriguez, his multiple compound eyes reflecting a mixture of contempt and calculated malevolence. Diplomatic protocols had been slowly unraveling for decades, with humanity existing as an anomaly in the carefully structured galactic hierarchy. What most representatives did not know was the complex history leading to this moment. Humanity had emerged as a spacefaring civilization, faster than any recorded species in galactic archives. Within mere decades of achieving faster-than-light travel, humans had colonized multiple star systems, developed revolutionary technologies, and demonstrated an adaptive capability that terrified more established civilizations. The Zentari had long viewed humans as a potential threat, a young, unpredictable species that refused to conform to established interstellar protocols. Previous diplomatic encounters had been exercises in barely contained hostility, with the Zentari consistently attempting to impose their rigid hierarchical structure on human interactions. Rodriguez's neural implant quietly processed multiple streams of information, her augmented senses capturing details imperceptible to unenhanced beings. She carried with her not just diplomatic credentials, but a comprehensive network of encrypted data, fail-safe protocols, and contingency plans that represented humanity's true depth of preparation. The chamber itself was a marvel of technological integration. Holographic displays shimmered around the delegates, showing real-time translation, historical diplomatic records, and complex relational networks that mapped the intricate political landscape. Each delegate was surrounded by a subtle technological ecosystem, personal force fields, communication buffers, and complex sensory manipulation systems. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Krulnax began, his vocalization translated through multiple linguistic matrices. We are gathered to address the continued anomalous behavior of the human civilization. Rodriguez knew this was not a genuine diplomatic session. The Zentari had already made their decision. Every movement, every subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere suggested an imminent and calculated action. Her final mission was never about survival. It was about ensuring that humanity's response would be precisely calibrated, devastating, and transformative. The quantum encryption device nestled within her neural implant continued its silent preparation. Microscopic data streams began to propagate, invisible to the surrounding delegates but carrying the potential to fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power. As Krulnax continued his politically charged speech, Rodriguez's mind remained calm, her body a perfect instrument of diplomatic composure. She was simultaneously a messenger, a strategic asset, and the first line of a response that had been decades in the making. The moment was coming. The galaxy would soon understand that humanity was not just another species to be categorized and controlled. The first transmission arrived at the United Earth Strategic Command Center precisely 17 minutes after Ambassador Rodriguez's execution. It wasn't a message of grief or outrage, but a meticulously coded directive that seemed, to any external observer, like nothing more than routine administrative communication. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains, the primary command center hummed with an energy that defied its outward appearance of calm efficiency. Director Aisha Nakamura studied the holographic displays, her fingers dancing across quantum-encrypted interfaces that would appear incomprehensible to anyone without specialized training. She was the architect of humanity's most closely guarded strategic network, a system that had been decades in preparation. Humanity's response was not a product of sudden inspiration, but of long-standing contingency planning. Every human colony, research station, and military outpost had been prepared for this moment, though few truly believed it would ever come. The execution of Ambassador Rodriguez was the trigger for a response mechanism that had been carefully designed, tested, and refined over generations. Research facilities that appeared to be studying peaceful technologies now revealed their true purpose. The Quantum Adaptive Response Network, QARN, came online, a distributed intelligence system that was part artificial intelligence, part human strategic thinking. Unlike traditional military command structures, QARN was a living, breathing ecosystem of computational and human intelligence. In orbit around Jupiter, a network of research stations that had been masquerading as deep space exploration centers began their transformation. Prototype technologies that had been developed in absolute secrecy now hummed with potential. Adaptive nanoswarm technologies, quantum communication networks, and revolutionary propulsion systems that could rewrite the fundamental understanding of space travel emerged from their dormant states. Dr. Marcus Chen, lead researcher at the Europa Advanced Systems Laboratory, watched as decades of carefully guarded research began to take physical form. Entire production lines that had been hidden within seemingly innocuous geological research facilities now retooled themselves with impossible speed. Manufacturing systems powered by quantum computing could redesign and produce complex technological systems faster than any known galactic civilization could comprehend. The response was not just technological but deeply strategic. Specialized teams, long embedded in various sectors of galactic society, began their synchronized activation. These were not traditional soldiers, but a diverse network of scientists, diplomats, economic specialists, and strategic analysts, each a critical piece of a larger, intricate mechanism. Communication networks lit up with encrypted transmissions that appeared, to any external observer, as nothing more than routine scientific and commercial data. Each transmission carried layers of meaning, adaptive algorithms that could reshape their own content based on potential interception and response. Human colonies that had been established across multiple star systems were not isolated outposts, but carefully designed ecosystem-level strategic nodes. Each settlement contained embedded technologies, resource management systems, and defensive capabilities that could transform from peaceful scientific communities to formidable defensive strongholds in milliseconds. The quantum communication network that connected these colonies was unlike anything in galactic history. Traditional faster-than-light communication relied on signal transmission, but humanity's network used quantum entanglement, allowing instantaneous communication that could not be intercepted or decoded by external technologies. Director Nakamura watched as the first phase of the response began to take shape. This was not about immediate military retaliation, but about creating a comprehensive, multidimensional response that would fundamentally challenge the Zentauri's understanding of conflict. "Initiate Protocol Horizon," she spoke softly, her words triggering a cascade of preparations that would reshape galactic dynamics. The galaxy was about to witness a response that defied every known principle of interstellar conflict. Humanity was preparing not just for war, but for a complete transformation of the existing galactic order. The first strikes were invisible, silent, and devastating. Zentauri communication networks experienced the initial tremors of humanity's response as a series of inexplicable anomalies. Navigation systems in their primary fleet began providing coordinate calculations that defied mathematical logic. Planetary defense grids suffered cascading system failures that seemed to originate from multiple impossible locations simultaneously. Dr. Elena Reyes, the lead architect of the Quantum Interference Project, watched from her secure facility on Titan as the first wave of technological warfare unfolded. The system she had spent decades developing was not a traditional weapon, but a sophisticated digital ecosystem designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses in alien computational structures. Quantum entanglement communication modules, disguised within seemingly mundane scientific equipment, began their intricate dance. These were not simple hacking tools, but adaptive intelligence systems that could reshape themselves instantaneously. Each module was a living algorithm, capable of learning, mutating, and responding to defensive measures faster than any known computational system. In the research stations orbiting Mars, prototype technologies emerged from carefully maintained secrecy. Adaptive nanoswarm technologies represented a quantum leap in technological capability. Unlike traditional robotic systems, these nanoswarms could reconfigure themselves at the molecular level, changing form, function, and purpose in milliseconds. A single nanoswarm could transform from a communication relay to a precision engineering tool, then to a defensive shield, all within the span of a heartbeat. The Zentary's rigid technological infrastructure, built on centuries of predictable development, had no framework to understand or counter such adaptive capabilities. Captain Michael Rodriguez, a distant relative of the executed ambassador, led a specialized technological warfare unit. Their primary weapon was not a traditional armament, but a series of quantum-locked communication disruptors that could penetrate even the most sophisticated alien defense systems. Target acquisition confirmed, he spoke softly, his neural interface translating complex computational strategies into actionable military directives. The unit operated from a stealth platform that existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states, making traditional detection methods obsolete. The Zentary discovered they were fighting an enemy that did not conform to any known rules of engagement. Their massive fleet, a testament to centuries of military development, found its most advanced systems compromised by technologies that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physics. Quantum communication networks developed by human researchers could transmit information across vast distances instantaneously, using principles that the Zentary scientific community had considered purely theoretical. These networks were not just communication tools but living, adaptive intelligence systems that could reshape themselves based on environmental conditions. Dr. Rice's team had developed what they called contextual intelligence, computational systems that could understand and adapt to complex scenarios with a level of nuance that traditional artificial intelligence could never achieve. Each system was part machine, part living algorithm, capable of learning and evolving at speeds that seemed impossible. The most shocking aspect of humanity's technological response was its fundamental approach. Unlike the Zentary's hierarchical and rigid technological development, human systems were designed with inherent adaptability. They did not seek to control, but to understand and evolve. Zentary military analysts watching the unfolding conflict began to realize they were facing something entirely unprecedented. These were not simply advanced technologies, but a fundamentally different approach to technological development, one that viewed technology as a living, adaptive ecosystem rather than a set of fixed tools. As the first wave of technological strikes concluded, the galaxy held its collective breath. The Zentary had expected a traditional military response to their diplomatic transgression. Instead, they found themselves confronting a technological metamorphosis that challenged everything they understood about warfare, intelligence, and technological development. Humanity was rewriting the rules of galactic engagement, one quantum algorithm at a time. The communication arrived simultaneously across thousands of Zentary communication nodes. A holographic projection of Ambassador Elena Rodriguez materialized, not as a message of vengeance, but as a carefully constructed narrative of hope and resilience. Dr. Samira Kaurti, head of the Xenopsychological Warfare Division, watched the projection's deployment with scientific precision. This was not a simple propaganda transmission, but a meticulously crafted psychological operation that would challenge the fundamental social structures of the Zentary civilization. The holographic Rodriguez spoke in multiple linguistic matrices, her image adapting to the perceptual capabilities of different alien species. Each version carried subtle nuances that would resonate with the specific cultural and psychological frameworks of various civilizations. Machine learning algorithms had spent years developing these adaptive communication strategies, studying every available piece of xenocultural data. Within the Zentari communication networks, specialized linguistic teams began their intricate work. They had spent decades studying the complex communication patterns of the Zentari society, a hierarchical system built on precise informational exchanges and ritualized communication protocols. Now they introduced microscopic disruptions that would create cascading psychological effects. The strategy was not about direct confrontation, but about introducing subtle doubt. Each transmission was a precision instrument designed to erode the Zentari's confidence from within. Mimetic strategies developed by teams of linguists, psychologists, and computational experts created information vectors that would spread like neural pathways through the Zentari's collective consciousness. In orbital research stations, teams monitored the psychological impact with real-time computational analysis. They tracked information propagation, measuring the subtle shifts in communication patterns, social media equivalent platforms, and institutional decision-making processes. The goal was not destruction, but fundamental transformation. Captain Alejandro Reyes, a specialist in adaptive communication strategies, explained the approach to his team. "We're not fighting a traditional war," he emphasized, his neural interface displaying complex psychological propagation models. "We're reshaping the entire informational ecosystem." The holographic projections of Rodriguez became more than just a communication strategy. They transformed into a complex narrative ecosystem. Each projection contained multiple layers of information, some obvious, some hidden, all designed to create a multidimensional psychological impact. Zentari researchers discovered that the projections contained adaptive information structures. The more they attempted to analyze and understand the transmissions, the more complex the information became. It was as if the communication itself was a living, evolving entity. Specialized teams had developed what they called contextual intelligence narratives, information systems that could reshape themselves based on the specific psychological context of their receivers. A transmission viewed by a military administrator would contain different subtle cues compared to one viewed by a civilian researcher. The most shocking aspect of this approach was its fundamental humanity. Unlike the Zentari's rigid informational control, these transmissions carried elements of empathy, complexity, and nuanced understanding. They did not seek to dominate but to communicate, to create understanding. Zentari sociological analysis systems began to break down. The transmissions defied their traditional classification models. These were not simple propaganda messages, but complex psychological ecosystems that could adapt, evolve, and reshape themselves in real time. Dr. Corey watched the initial results with scientific detachment. The psychological impact was already exceeding their most optimistic projections. The Zentari were not just receiving information, they were being fundamentally challenged at the level of their collective consciousness. As the first wave of psychological operations concluded, the galaxy witnessed a transformation unlike any in recorded history. Humanity had discovered a method of conflict that transcended traditional warfare, an approach that sought to create understanding rather than impose dominance. The message was clear. This was not just a response to an execution. This was a fundamental reimagining of interstellar communication. The combat module designated as 217 existed in a state that defied traditional understanding of military technology. Developed in the deep research facilities beneath the Marineris Valley on Mars, it represented the pinnacle of human adaptive warfare technology. Commander Area Chen watched the module's deployment through a quantum-encrypted neural interface. What appeared to be a simple reconnaissance drone to external sensors was, in reality, a complex living system of computational and physical intelligence. The AS-217 could transform its physical and functional capabilities in microseconds, adapting to environmental challenges with a complexity that made traditional military hardware look like primitive tools. The module's core was a breakthrough in distributed intelligence, a hybrid system that merged artificial intelligence with human strategic thinking. Unlike rigid computational systems, the AS-217 could learn, predict, and reshape its entire operational parameters in real time. It was less a piece of equipment and more a living, thinking entity. Centauri military analysts attempting to track the module found themselves confronting an impossible challenge. The AS-217 existed simultaneously in multiple potential states, its quantum communication systems rendering traditional tracking methods useless. One moment it would appear as a standard reconnaissance drone, the next as a precision engineering tool, then as a defensive systems network. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the lead developer, explained the core principle to his team. "We're not creating weapons," he emphasized. "We're developing adaptive ecosystems of technological intelligence." Each module carried within it not just computational capabilities, but complex decision-making algorithms that could process tactical information at speeds that defied conventional understanding. The neural link technologies deployed with these combat modules represented a quantum leap in military strategy. Soldiers were no longer isolated units but part of a living, breathing tactical network. A soldier's sensory input, strategic observations, and tactical experiences could be instantaneously shared across an entire operational system. In the orbital research stations surrounding Jupiter, entire production lines dedicated to these adaptive combat systems worked with impossible efficiency. Manufacturing technologies that had been developed in secret could redesign and produce complex technological systems faster than any known galactic civilization could comprehend. The most shocking aspect of these systems was their fundamental approach to conflict. Traditional military technologies sought to overcome through brute force. Human adaptive warfare modules sought to understand, predict, and ultimately prevent conflict through comprehensive environmental and strategic analysis. Captain Nikolai Volkov led a specialized deployment team that interfaced with these adaptive systems. Their training was as much about psychological flexibility as technological expertise. Each team member was part soldier, part scientist, part strategic analyst, capable of making split-second decisions that integrated human intuition with computational precision. Centauri military networks began experiencing cascading system failures as these adaptive modules penetrated their most secure defensive systems. The modules did not attack in traditional ways but instead introduced complex informational disruptions that reshaped the very fundamental understanding of their defensive capabilities. The quantum communication networks that supported these combat systems were living, evolving entities. They could reshape communication pathways, create instantaneous tactical responses, and develop entirely new communication protocols in milliseconds. Traditional intercepting technologies found themselves facing an impossible challenge. How do you track a communication system that can fundamentally change its own operational parameters? Dr. Elena Reyes, watching from her secure facility on Titan, understood the deeper implications. This was not just a technological breakthrough, but a fundamental reimagining of how intelligence and adaptability could function in a complex, dynamic environment. As the first wave of adaptive combat deployments concluded, the galaxy witnessed a transformation that challenged every existing understanding of military technology. Humanity had developed an approach to conflict that was less about destruction and more about comprehensive understanding and strategic adaptation. The message was clear. Warfare was no longer about overpowering an enemy, but about understanding and reshaping the entire context of conflict. The diplomatic vessel Horizon Paradigm moved through contested space with an elegance that defied traditional understanding of interstellar navigation. Ambassador Dr. Sofia Martinez sat at its core, surrounded by a team of specialists who were far more than simple diplomats. Each member of her team represented a carefully selected nexus of expertise. Xenolinguists, cultural anthropologists, quantum communication specialists, and strategic analysts worked in a symbiotic network that transformed diplomatic engagement into a complex, multidimensional art form. The Zentari had long maintained control of the galactic political landscape through a carefully constructed system of economic dependencies and strategic manipulations. Humanity's approach was fundamentally different, not to replace this system, but to create pathways for collective evolution. Classified data streams began to propagate across multiple communication networks. These were not simple intelligence reports, but carefully constructed narratives that exposed the intricate mechanisms of Zentari oppression. Each transmission was a precision instrument designed to create nuanced understanding among the various subjugated civilizations. Dr. Marcus Chen, the lead strategic analyst, explained the approach to his team. "We're not seeking to destroy the current system," he emphasized. "We're creating alternative pathways of cooperation and mutual development." The team had spent decades studying the complex economic and social structures of subjugated civilizations, developing strategies that could create sustainable paths to self-determination. The first responses came from unexpected sources. Smaller civilizations that had existed under Zentari control for generations began to see possibilities they had never imagined. The human approach was not about military conquest, but about providing technological and strategic support that could help these civilizations develop their own capabilities. Specialized research teams had developed adaptive support technologies that could be tailored to the specific needs of different civilizations. Communication networks, energy production systems, and educational technologies could be rapidly modified to suit the unique cultural and technological contexts of each receiving civilization. Ambassador Martinez understood the deeper implications of their strategy. This was not about creating human-centric alliances, but about developing a new framework for interstellar cooperation. Each interaction was an opportunity to create more complex, adaptive systems of mutual understanding. The quantum communication networks that supported these diplomatic efforts were living, evolving entities. They could reshape communication pathways, translate not just languages but complex cultural contexts, and develop entirely new protocols of mutual understanding in real time. Zentari political analysis systems began to break down. The human approach defied their traditional understanding of diplomatic engagement. These were not simple negotiations or attempts at economic manipulation, but comprehensive efforts to reshape the fundamental understanding of interstellar cooperation. In orbital diplomatic stations, teams monitored the impact of these transmissions with sophisticated computational analysis. They tracked subtle shifts in communication patterns, economic dependencies, and social structures across multiple civilizations. The goal was not domination, but comprehensive transformation. The most shocking aspect of this approach was its fundamental humanity. Unlike the Zentari's rigid control mechanisms, these diplomatic efforts carried elements of empathy, complexity, and nuanced understanding. They did not seek to impose a single model of development, but to create adaptive frameworks that could evolve with each unique civilization. Specialized teams had developed what they called contextual diplomatic intelligence, communication systems that could reshape themselves based on the specific cultural and technological context of their receivers. A transmission to an agricultural civilization would contain different nuanced support strategies compared to one sent to a technologically advanced society. As the first wave of diplomatic realignment concluded, the galaxy witnessed a transformation unlike any in recorded history. Humanity had discovered a method of interstellar engagement that transcended traditional diplomatic models, an approach that sought to create understanding and mutual development rather than impose control. The message was clear. This was not just a response to an execution. This was a fundamental reimagining of how civilizations could interact and evolve together. The Galactic Conclave had not witnessed such tension in millennia. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations filled the massive holographic chamber, their collective anticipation palpable through layers of quantum communication networks. Ambassador Aria Chen stood at the central platform, her presence a carefully calibrated performance of diplomatic precision. Behind her, a holographic display began to unfold, not a weapon, not a threat, but a comprehensive revelation of the Zentari Empire's historical oppression. Classified archives emerged from quantum-encrypted data streams. Each revelation was a precisely targeted narrative, designed to expose the intricate mechanisms of Centauri control without overwhelming the delicate diplomatic ecosystem. Decades of research had prepared humanity for this moment, a surgical diplomatic intervention that would reshape galactic power dynamics. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead synarchival specialist, had spent her entire career preparing for this precise moment. The archives they were presenting were more than simple historical documents. They were living data ecosystems that could adapt their presentation based on the specific cultural and psychological contexts of their receivers. "We do not seek vengeance," Ambassador Chen spoke, her words translated across multiple linguistic matrices. "We seek understanding and collective evolution." The most shocking revelations were not about direct Centauri atrocities, but about the complex systemic mechanisms of control. Economic networks that had appeared voluntary were exposed as intricate systems of manipulation. Communication technologies that seemed advanced were revealed as sophisticated tools of cultural suppression. Specialized teams had developed what they called contextual historical intelligence, archival systems that could reshape their presentation based on the specific cultural and technological context of their receivers. A transmission to a technologically advanced civilization would contain different nuanced historical insights compared to one sent to a developing society. Representatives from subjugated civilizations began to see possibilities they had never imagined. The human approach was not about creating a new system of control, but about providing comprehensive support frameworks that could help these civilizations develop their own capabilities. Quantum communication networks supporting these revelations were living, evolving entities. They could reshape communication pathways, translate not just languages, but complex cultural and historical contexts, and develop entirely new protocols of mutual understanding in real time. The technological support offered was equally revolutionary. Adaptive support technologies could be rapidly modified to suit the unique cultural and technological contexts of each receiving civilization. Communication networks, energy production systems, and educational technologies represented comprehensive support rather than simple technological transfer. Dr. Marcus Chen, leading the technological support team, explained their approach. "We're creating ecosystems of mutual development," he emphasized, "not systems of dependency." Each technological package was designed with inherent adaptability, allowing receiving civilizations to modify and evolve the technologies according to their specific needs. Centauri diplomatic analysis systems began to experience fundamental breakdowns. The human approach defied their traditional understanding of interstellar engagement. These were not simple negotiations or attempts at economic manipulation, but comprehensive efforts to reshape the fundamental understanding of collective development. The most profound aspect of this approach was its fundamental philosophy of cooperation. Unlike the Centauri's rigid hierarchical models, these diplomatic efforts carried elements of empathy, complexity, and nuanced understanding. They did not seek to impose a single model of development, but to create adaptive frameworks that could evolve with each unique civilization. Orbital diplomatic stations monitored the impact with sophisticated computational analysis. They tracked subtle shifts in communication patterns, economic dependencies, and social structures across multiple civilizations. The goal was not domination, but comprehensive transformation. As the diplomatic counteroffensive concluded, the galaxy witnessed a transformation unlike any in recorded history. Humanity had discovered a method of interstellar engagement that transcended traditional diplomatic models, an approach that sought to create understanding and mutual development rather than impose control. The message resonated across countless civilizations. This was not just a response to an execution. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could interact and evolve together. The Galactic Reconstruction Summit convened in a space station that defied traditional architectural understanding. Constructed from adaptive quantum materials, the station itself seemed to breathe with the collective potential of multiple civilizations. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez's holographic legacy guided the proceedings, not as a singular consciousness, but as a distributed intelligence system that could adapt to the complex needs of the gathering. Her execution, once intended to break humanity's spirit, had become the catalyst for the most profound transformation in galactic history. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations sat, or stood, or floated, depending on their physiological requirements, in a chamber that continuously reshaped itself to accommodate diverse biological needs. The Zentari delegation occupied a position of critical vulnerability, their once unassailable power structure now laid bare by humanity's comprehensive revelations. Dr. Sofia Martinez, leading the diplomatic reconstruction team, understood the delicate nature of this moment. This is not about punishment, she addressed the assembly, but about creating a framework for collective evolution. The technological support packages developed by human researchers were nothing short of revolutionary. Each civilization received adaptive technological ecosystems tailored to their specific developmental needs. These were not simple tools of technology transfer, but living, evolving support systems that could grow and change with the receiving civilization. Quantum communication networks that supported the summit were themselves a marvel of adaptive intelligence. They could translate not just languages, but entire cultural contexts, creating communication pathways that transcended traditional linguistic and cultural barriers. The Zentari discovered that their fall from power was not a destruction, but an opportunity for fundamental reimagination. The comprehensive archives revealed not just their systems of oppression, but the complex psychological mechanisms that had driven their civilizational approach. Specialized teams had developed what they called civilizational healing technologies, comprehensive support frameworks that could help species process historical traumas, redistribute resource dependencies, and create new pathways of mutual understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen explained the deeper philosophical approach. We're not creating a new hierarchy, he emphasized, but a network of mutual development. Each technological and diplomatic intervention was designed with inherent adaptability, allowing for continuous evolution and growth. The most profound transformation was not technological, but philosophical. Humanity had introduced a fundamental reimagining of interstellar cooperation, a model that viewed diversity as a strength, adaptation as a continuous process, and mutual understanding as the highest form of intelligence. Orbital analysis systems tracked the subtle shifts in galactic dynamics. Economic networks began to reshape themselves. Communication pathways became more complex and nuanced, and civilizations that had been isolated for generations began to find new ways of mutual support and development. Ambassador Rodriguez's final mission became clear. Her execution was not an end, but a beginning, a moment that would be remembered as the catalyst for a fundamental galactic transformation. The adaptive technologies developed during this conflict began to find peaceful applications. Communication systems that had been designed for strategic intervention now became tools of unprecedented cultural exchange. Quantum networks that had tracked military movements now facilitated scientific collaboration across multiple civilizations. Zentari researchers found themselves working alongside the civilizations they had once oppressed, their technological expertise now directed towards collective development rather than control. The rigid hierarchical structures that had defined their civilization for millennia began to dissolve, replaced by more fluid, adaptive frameworks. As the summit concluded, the galaxy witnessed a transformation that defied traditional understanding of conflict resolution. Humanity had not conquered, but had created a new paradigm of interstellar cooperation. The message resonated across countless star systems. This was more than a response to an execution. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could understand, support, and evolve together. Ambassador Rodriguez's holographic legacy smiled, a subtle, knowing expression that carried the weight of a civilization's most profound transformation.